everyone. Today we are going to be removing the engine from this 1974 Volkswagen Thing. This is a 1600 dual port engine, fairly stock. It does have a Weber Progressive carburetor on it and a non-stock exhaust, but everything else is pretty much the same. It should be fairly straightforward. We're going to go over a couple of things and hopefully make this an easy process for you. All right, let's get started. So either the day before or the night before you start this project, you may want to get a little PB blaster on some of these nuts and bolts that are rusted, for example on the exhaust, and then anything on the engine tin that needs to have a little bit of PB blaster on there. That's always a good idea, because some of them, if they get a little rusty or corroded, can get difficult to take off. And then before you do anything else, go ahead and disconnect your battery. This one happens to be a 13 millimeter, and that way you won't have any trouble with sparks or fires or anything else dangerous. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the gas line. The incoming gas line goes to the top of the fuel pump. So you're going to want to loosen that clamp, and then I've got a small vice grip on there, and hopefully that'll slow the flow of any gas while I plug this. All right, took a little bit of doing, but I was able to get it loose enough where I think it's gonna, it's gonna pull off. And if you kind of keep this facing up, you can often feed it through without too much gas leaking out. So I've got the gas line just kind of tucked up away in there, and what I did is I just put a temporary shut off on it to keep it from leaking out any gas. I've got it clear of all the spark plug wires and everything back there. I took this first heater hose off, and now I'm going to take this one off as well. Even with the PB blaster, all three of these guys broke when I was taking it off, unfortunately. So add that to the list. We'll need to get new bolts when we put this thing back together. Something that you'll want to do as you're disconnecting these wires is you're going to want to label them all, so that when you go to put everything back or put a new engine in, you'll know exactly what wire goes where. So I'll be labeling all these as they come off the coil, and then the ones for the generator, so everything gets labeled, so it's really easy to put it back together again. Next, these wires on the generator have to come off, and it's just the 8 millimeter wrench here, and you may have to hold that bottom one. It's kind of like sandwiched in there, and then you'll also have one ground right there. Next, you're going to want to locate the accelerator cable that comes somewhere through the fan shroud. Yours is probably going to look a little different than mine, because you're probably going to have a Volkswagen or like a Solex or a regular carb that you might find on a stock engine, possibly. This is a Progressive Weber, so it's kind of coming through on a different place. So you take your 8 millimeter, loosen that up on that, and then just make sure that's free. You'll probably want to pull this out too, because otherwise it's gonna drop and you're possibly gonna lose it. Oh, this one, there we go. So next, what's going to need to come out is we're going to have to take this engine tin off, because we're going to need to, when we remove this engine, it's going to need to come out towards the back of the vehicle, and we need that clearance. So this engine tin is going to have to come off. I just wanted to show you something that an old timer, oh, this one's nice and loose. An old timer showed me one time. Now I'm the old timer sharing this knowledge. If you ever have a nut that, or I'm sorry, a screw that is real, like kind of almost locked in there. All these are pretty loose. I'll just model it, I guess. All you have to do is put your big screwdriver on there, and if you find the open end wrench that fits on there, and you push down, it'll help give you the torque that you need. Sometimes you can't quite, get that turning, but if you push down really firmly with this hand and turn with this, it gives you the leverage that you need. I thought that was pretty cool, and always look for an opportunity to use that trick. Once you've got all these sheet metal screws taken off, you can just lift this guy right out. Sometimes you have to kind of finagle it a little bit, figure out the best way for this thing to come out. It can be kind of tricky, but work at it, you'll get it. One more thing that I just realized that I'm gonna have to take off, and I'm running out of light here, so I'm gonna spray a little bit of PB Blaster on the big bolts that hold the bumper on and let that soak overnight, and then tomorrow I'm gonna take this bumper off. You could probably do it with the bumper on, but as you can see, it's gonna make it really tight, and it'll make it difficult to clear when we pull the engine out of the bottom of this. It's gonna be a little bit harder to clear. So I have the rear bumper taken off, so I have plenty of clearance down here. I'm hoping to get away with not having to take this header off. We shall see. I've also taken a moment to put plastic over these openings and down here to prevent any moisture from getting in. If you take off the header, make sure you seal these openings up temporarily to keep moisture from getting into the heads. I've got pretty much everything disconnected and pulled out of the way, all the wires. So I'm underneath the car now. One thing to remember is this guy right here. There's one on each side that goes to the heater boxes. That's the on-off lever, and I believe that's an 8mm. So make sure you've disconnected that. Otherwise, you'll be wondering what the heck's holding everything up when you're trying to pull the engine off. And just forgot to mention, this guy up here is a 17mm, and you can use like a box style, an open end wrench, and that should come off fairly simply. The bumper bolts are also 17mm as well. So the nut over here on this side is a bit tricky. You're working blind, so you'll be putting the wrench back here and kind of feeling where it is with your fingers, and then getting that wrench on there. Mine was really tight. I had to use a piece of pipe on the end of the wrench to get a little bit of extra leverage because I could not get that guy off. So anyways, here we are. We've got everything disconnected, and this thing is ready to wiggle off the transmission. And what I like to do is have a bunch of blocks of wood. I have this basket of wood just for this purpose, and as you can see, I'm going to use it to support the engine when I lower it down. So I've just got a standard floor jack underneath here with a small chunk of plywood supporting under where the oil drain pan is, and I'm going to use this as kind of leverage. I may have to use the jack to kind of raise and lower the engine to find where I can pull this thing out, but let's see. It's wiggling already. I feel like I need to jack it up a little bit. It's kind of hanging up on something. All right, we're gonna try this again. See if we have any more luck wiggling it around. Let's see. clear. There it goes. Okay. You want to be careful of all your spark plug wires and everything. But what you're going to do is now you're going to lower your jack, and we'll see if we can clear everything. All right, we are on the home stretch now. So what I've done is I've put some blocks down to lower the engine far enough where it would clear as much as possible, but still I was able to roll the floor jack out. And now the idea is I have all these little 2x4s. I'm just going to go from side to side and lift up the engine, pull one 2x4 out, go to the other side, lift up the engine, pull the other 2x4 out, and lower that down as far as I can, all the way to the ground, and then there won't be too much to jack the car up to be able to pull this thing straight out. So this is where it might be helpful to have a second person. One person lifts and the other person kind of removes those blocks underneath there. I'm just gonna see if I can kick it out. Yeah, so just kicked it out with my foot. Almost down to the ground now. Okay, now I just have one more block on that side and I'm as low as I can go. So now you can see with that resting on the ground how much I have to jack the rest of the car up. Looks like it's about 3 to 4 inches, and then I should be able to slide this engine right out. One of the things I wasn't able to show you before, this is that 4th bolt, comes through here and bolts up to the back of the engine case. So that one you can access from underneath the car. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is for you thing owners out there, I don't know if you can see it, it's laying on the ground right here. There's a bracket that's supposed to be part of like an additional skid plate. It attaches to the bottom of the transmission. Anyways, it was making it extremely difficult to remove the engine after I got it unbolted. It attached down here and it just wasn't giving me enough clearance, so I did have to remove that to give myself some more clearance. So be aware of that. All right, well, we finally got the engine out. Definitely took some maneuvering and jacking the vehicle, back of the vehicle up a little bit further than I felt safe with. Ended up being slightly precarious, but I had the front wheels blocked and tried to keep it as safe as possible. Had to take the air filter off and even tip the back of the engine up and slide it out that way. But it's out, and next video I'll be going over kind of preparing for the other engine to go in. So anyways, hit that like button. Hopefully the video is helpful for you. Share, make a comment, and love to hear your thoughts. And we'll see you next time. Mahalo and aloha.